Hello and welcome to the 312th edition of the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins. And joining us, we finally have the full crew back together here in Nashville, Tennessee. It's our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton.
Hey, what's up, boys? It's man, it feels like it's been ages, but man, I'm glad to be back. Josh, Matt, great to see your faces, and it's great to see those words above our head, man. Illegal Motion. This is the OG of my podcasting. So I always have a soft spot in my heart for you guys.
It is, and it's the original for all of us, which reminds me that we cannot get started without the third amigo in the second city, a man who I do not think is excited for Big Ten After Dark, but it's coming whether he wants it or not. It's our intrepid blogger from Big Ten Accounting, Josh Cook.
Yay, Rutgers at UCLA. The first time they'll ever make the Rose Bowl.
I mean, you're not wrong, Josh. You're not wrong. We are going to talk about the bloated Big Ten here on today's show. We've got effectively our Midwest preview show with the Big Ten and the MAC. We're going to continue doing it like we have been with Josh driving the show and letting me just spit out hot takes. And Corey gets to join me in those here today.
Corey's got the cold takes.
Yep, but before
freezing cold takes.
Before we get into that, I want to remind everyone that we are presented by betonline.ag, where they continue to be your number one source for all of your online sports wagering needs. You name it, they've got it over there at betonline.ag. With the college football season and the NFL season just around the corner, MLB pennant races in full swings, there is no better time than to be over on betonline.ag. Head on over to the website or use your mobile device today to sign up and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts. Josh, we are starting with our home conference. So I will let you go ahead and get into it.
All right. So if you're like Coach and you haven't listened to our first two shows, I've been running things. Matt got a big promotion. Coach took a new coaching gig, and now his school year started. So I'm kind of running things. I am doing a little summary of what happened in the league last year. I have 5 questions. They are my personal 5 questions. Feel free to chime in at any point during those 5, and then we'll run through how I think they are going to end up. And again, this is just me. In the past, we've each done our own rankings and debated, but this time it's just call and response. So for the Big Ten, to say it was a little one-sided towards one division last year would be an understatement. Michigan won the East and the title game and went to the playoffs. Ohio State went 11-1 in regular season play. They finished second in the East, but they also went to the playoffs. Penn State went 11-2 overall. They won the Rose Bowl and were a top 10 team in the final standings. The West was won by Purdue, who, well, they lost 3 conference games.
And got smoked by LSU.
Yeah. All told, the league produced an impressive 9 teams with winning records. It was just an extreme disparity between those two divisions. One of the best storylines was Illinois putting together a really competitive season. One of the funniest storylines was Purdue having a breakthrough season only to see everyone leave overnight. And one of the most predictable storylines was seeing Nebraska fire Scott Frost after a hilariously awful.
All right, I got a quick aside, because this just happened at our in service. So rewind a week ago, and one of our teachers on staff is a Nebraska fan, and our principal's like, we're the Lawson Lightning now, and so he's like, this is how I envision our intro to be, and he had the intro for Nebraska versus Georgia Southern, and it's because they play Thunderstruck, and I leaned over and go, I think they lost that game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
And I think the teacher was like, yeah, very funny. We lost that game. Thank you.
Well done.
So my personal 5 questions, Matt, Coach, of course, chime in on any of these. Number 1, does the Big Ten put 2 teams in the playoffs again?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Question 2. Who takes advantage of the Wild West in its final season?
I mean, you know what I'm
The
going
Fighting
to say.
Fickles. The Fighting Fickles.
Numero tres. Maryland, or sorry, I prefer to pronounce it Maryland. They went 8-5 last year, 4-5 in conference, and returned some very key pieces. Do they impact the title race in any way by upsetting Ohio State or Michigan?
I think those teams are too strong for them. They lose. Did they lose Tagovailoa?
No, he's got one more year.
No.
He's coming back.
No,
One more.
he's back,
Why do I
baby.
think he left?
Well, because Auburn tried to pay him $1.5 million to come down for one season.
That's right.
Hugh
And
Freeze.
plus, I didn't read number 4 in the East here, so there you go.
Number 4, can lovable losers Indiana or Rutgers make a bowl game?
Rutgers.
Yes on Indiana, and I'll tell you why later.
Ooh. And number 5, what the hell is going on in Evanston?
Emphasis on hell.
All right, so let's run through the standings.
It got weird.
Starting with the East, I got Michigan. Quarterback, same as last year. Check. Running back duo, same as last year. Check. Offensive line, one of the best in the leagues. Check. Defense is 7 starters back. Coach, your dogs are projected to be pretty good. Do you have any fear facing this Michigan team in the playoffs?
I don't think they have anybody that can cover Brock Bowers, so no, I have no fear.
Ooh, definitive.
Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, like even if I wasn't a Georgia fan, I would say Brock Bowers is the reason that Georgia should not have any fear playing against Michigan. Michigan's going to be really, really, really good, but I just think that they don't necessarily have I don't think they necessarily have an answer for that. Plus, I think the style of play that Michigan has versus Ohio State's more of a matchup nightmare for Georgia than I think Michigan is, because what Michigan does well, Georgia does well at defending it, and vice versa.
All right, moving over to the Buckeyes. I got them number 2, Marvin Harrison Jr. He answers a lot of questions because, well, they've got some questions about new quarterback, new look offensive line. But I want to focus on that defense. Matt, the Buckeyes defense famously has given up 87 points to Michigan the last 2 years. Have they solved that issue?
No, they have not. Michigan is going to three-peat against the Buckeyes this year and three-peat to win the Big Ten. I mean, I don't see a scenario in which Ohio State beats Michigan this year unless we have serious injuries to the Michigan offensive line. And I think that that's really what it boils down to for me, is that the Buckeyes have some assorted nice players on the defense, but the Michigan offensive line is so good that even with the good players that are in Ohio State's secondary, they don't have the horses in the trenches to keep up with a Michigan unit that should be, once again, the best or at worst top 3 offensive line in the country.
I concur with Matt. There's no way, like, once Michigan gets it rolling up front, I don't think, honestly, I don't think there's a team in this league that can pony up with those guys once they get kind of going up front.
Well, there's one team that thinks they might have it, and that's my 3rd place team in the East, Penn State. They have Drew Aller. He's a really intriguing prospect. They're pretty excited about him there in Happy Valley.
Highly
they feel
touted.
Like he has the ability.
Highly.
They feel he has the ability to lead this offense as effectively, if not more so, than Sean Clifford did the last few years. The running back group that he has to work with is fantastic. His offensive line is really good. They have a legit stud there in Olu Fashanu. The defense, very quietly, might actually be the best in the league. They have just some absolute studs over there.
One of my favorite names in the entire conference, Chop Robinson.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's all name team right there.
They also have their toughest game of the year, Michigan, at home. Their toughest crossover game, Iowa, at home. And they also have a joke of a non-conference that'll set them up pretty nicely with West Virginia, Delaware, and UMass. So Penn State's going to win crap ton of games. Coach, got a coaching question for you. The biggest weakness for this team is that receiving core. It's pretty much kind of an unknown at this point. How long does it take for that passing game to get into sync when you're facing what Penn State has?
When you have a good quarterback, not long at all, because I think if he's as good of a leader as they say he is, he can get them on the same page. And then if you have a great run game and an O line that has some talent, and your quarterback has time to sling it around, as long as those guys are running the routes at the precise depths and timing, no time at all, and the unknown receiving core will become famously known as the unknown receiving core, kind of like the no name defense for the Dolphins back in the 70s. It'll be kind of one of those where you're like, who is that? Who is that? Who is that? And then these names will be known by midseason. They'll have some guys you're like, okay, how did we not know this guy?
Well, I think the one thing jumping off of that, Coach, is that one of those guys is a known commodity in Dante Cephas, the Kent State transfer. And
Yes.
he was electric, absolutely electric for the Golden Flashes, very, very appropriately. And he is someone who could, I think, end up being, first team all conference type of guy. He is someone I am very high on. And I actually think that Penn State is going to finish second in the East this year, ahead
Ooh.
of Ohio State.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I think
shit, Ryan Day
Cephas.
fired.
I think Cephas. What I love about Cephas, I forgot about Cephas actually. What I love about Cephas, Georgia played Kent State last year, is seeing him and the way that Sean Lewis was able to use him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Penn State's going to get real creative here, and I think Drew Aller is going to be like, all right, we can use you here, there, and a little bit of everywhere. So I love this Penn State team as far as the way they're constructed. This has probably been, aside from that Rose Bowl team with Saquon Barkley, this might be my favorite Penn State team that I've seen since James Franklin took over.
I think this is the best Penn State team
Ooh.
that they've had since James Franklin took over. I'm really high on Aller. I love the two-headed monster at running back. You mentioned Olufashanu coming back, huge piece. Their offensive line is
Nailed it on the name.
is just a tick below Michigan's, and I think that they have the potential to do the same thing to Ohio State's defensive line that Michigan can do, and that's why I've got them finishing second with another very strong defense, with the Buckeyes finishing third in the East, and Ryan Day's seat turned all the way up.
When they get that crowd rocking, especially in a night game environment, that's just not going to be an easy.
It doesn't get much better. It really doesn't get much better.
It's not going to be an easy one for Michigan. I can tell you.
I'll tell you what.
Assure you that.
I'll tell you one night game where that crowd did not get going. Iowa's infamous 6-4 victory that included an intentional safety late in the game by Iowa.
Everyone loves a good intentional safety.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's head down to the Chesapeake. I got Maryland finishing fourth in this division. Coach mentioned him earlier, Tagovailoa. He is back. That's a huge piece because they have a few other holes on this team that need to get worked out, including the offensive line is just one starter back. The defense last year was a complete mess. That side of the ball has got to get figured out. But even with those question marks, thanks to Tagovailoa and thanks to their season last year, to me, this team reminds me a little bit of Minnesota. They're like the East version of Minnesota. They're kind of reliably a bowl program now, but not enough really in the tank to be a true contender. Perko, I see 7 locks or near lock wins on this schedule. So which do you see being more realistic? Them going over that with 8 or more wins, or them not living up to my expectations and winning just 6 games or less? I'm not letting you push and take 7.
Josh, who's the head coach of Maryland?
Michael Oxley.
What do you think my answer is going to be?
You have them going about 4-8.
I'm not saying they're going 4-8, but I'm saying 6-6 is much more likely. I think that, like you mentioned, Tagovailoa and getting Roman Hemby, the running back, is good for them. But, if you look at some of their crossover games, Illinois is not going to be easy. At Nebraska, in mid-November. You say what you will about Nebraska, but Matt Rule is leaps and bounds better than anything Scott Frost was. Plus, I think they're in much better shape in the quarterback situation as well. Their non-conference schedule, that being said, not super hard. I mean, they've got FCS Towson at home, a Charlotte team in Biff Pogge's first year at home, and then a Virginia squad who is still reeling after the tragic massacre of 3 of their players from last year. So, yes, 3-0 out of conference is very achievable, but Indiana's a win. Northwestern's probably a win. That's 5. Michigan State's a bit of a toss-up in East Lansing. Rutgers at the end of the season, that could be the game they're playing to win, to get to their 6th win of the year, man. Like, it's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. I'll take the under 7.
Well, you just mentioned in that run of their games, Sparty, who I have as 5th. Now, Michigan State, obviously, a few years ago, won a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a very skilled running back,
Kenneth Walker,
who then, went and got paid in the NFL. And they lost 7 games last year. They went 5-7. It's like, does a running back really mean that much? Well, now they welcome in a whole bunch of transfers to try and bolster things. But they have put a ton on quarterback Noah Kim's shoulders to jumpstart an offense that averaged less than 20 points per game. And in one of the more startling moves, they kept their awful defensive coordinator, Scotty Hazelton. He was god-freaking awful last year. Coach, you've been on plenty of staffs in your life. Why in the world would Mel Tucker retain Hazelton after last year's performance?
They must be really close. That's the only reason I can think of, because when you watch Michigan State play football, it looked like an utter disaster watching them play defense. And I guess they also wanted a reason for Noah Kim to feel a little bit more sense of urgency, because you feel like you have to score every time you touch the ball or you're going to lose. Those are the only 2 reasons I can think of, because my God, were they horrendous on defense a year ago. I think this just shows that Mel Tucker, I don't know that his, I don't
whatever,
know,
man. He got that $95 million. That's all that matters.
Yeah,
that's all that matters. I mean, what's the most telling thing to me about Michigan State is that at the end of spring, Peyton Thorne and Keon Coleman leave, and that's their two best players from last year. I mean,
Auburn's like, we can't get Tagovailoa, so we're going to get Peyton Thorne.
Yeah,
next best thing. Great call.
All right, we're heading to
not really
Matt's father's proud alma mater, Rutgers. Really nice defensive foundation. They got 7 starters back on that side of the ball. They have some really nice pieces at running back. They have a good trio of backs there. Feel free to read more about them on my blog. They have a tight end that I absolutely love in Johnny Langan, but they desperately need their quarterback, Gavin Wimsett, to improve. He was a pretty highly touted prospect. Came in last year, connected on just 48.5% of his passes.
Last time I checked, that's not very good.
Matt, what can we realistically expect from Wimsett now that he's got a little bit better offensive coordinator? He's got Minnesota's former OC, Kirk Shiraka. He's going to simplify the offense. It's an offense that Tanner Morgan succeeded a lot in. So what can we realistically expect from that quarterback?
57% completions. I'd say maybe a 3-2, maybe 4, maybe 5-2, somewhere there in touchdown to interception ratio. I mean, not world beaters, but I do expect them to be better. Wimsett, like you mentioned, was a 4-star recruit coming out of the state of Kentucky. They got jerked around so much. They were playing 3 quarterbacks. Like, they were cycling 3 quarterbacks at once last year. It was just play after play after play. You'd see 3 different plays, 3 quarterbacks in a row. It was just an absolute disaster. I have no idea what was happening there.
Steve Spurrier was there.
Kirk Shiraka, not a VW Shiraka, but Kirk Shiraka should be able to calm that down. What worries me, though, is the is the offensive line to be able to keep him upright. I think you're going to see a lot more utilizing his athleticism, a lot more bootlegs, getting him out, half field reads, and then letting him run if he needs to, because he can run. I mean, he's not like the world's greatest runner, but he's also not a statue either. So I would expect a lot more of getting him on the move, running to throw, giving him some easier reads and some, letting Johnny Langan be that number one target, as his, not necessarily his primary guy, but almost always his second read.
Is the good doctor excited about this team?
I don't think so.
I mean, it's Rutgers. Very rarely is he probably ever excited about it. But to Matt's point, I just think having an offensive coordinator that just understands that maybe the turmoil of rotating three guys in successive plays might affect.
Funny.
It's hilarious, but it might affect your accuracy rating. Like, I just think him sticking with Wimsett will automatically get his percentage up to 60. I think just having him play 2 plays in a row and be able to get into a rhythm will help get his pass completion percentage up to 60. I think if he can get it to 65, Rutgers can be a pretty solid team. And I think Soraka is going to put Wimsett in positions to win. Like Matt said, he's going to move the pocket. They're going to use the run game and play action boots off of that. They'll probably with Langdon use With Langan, they'll use RPOs a little bit. They'll try to get some quick game going to get the ball out of his hands so his offensive line doesn't have to protect a whole lot. There's some creative ways you can get your quarterback involved in order to make things life a little bit easier. And he did it for Tanner Morgan. I don't see why he couldn't do it for Wimsett too, who's a 4-star talent.
All right, rounding out the East, we got Indiana, and I think that this team is going to be so much improved over last year, but their record is not going to show it because they have a god-awful, terrible schedule. They're one of the teams that it was their turn to have 5 of 9 league games on the road. They face Louisville in the non-conference. They have crossovers that include Illinois and Wisconsin. Coach, their projected starter right now is Tennessee transfer Taven Jackson, who was a 4-star. Didn't really see the field much, but that's your neck of the woods. What the Big Ten fans know about Taven Jackson?
Well, Taven Jackson, what you'll notice is he's very, very smooth, very confident in the pocket. His 6'3", 200-pound frame appears bigger than is actually listed. I really like his decision making, his athleticism, just his poise and movement within the pocket. So I think you're getting a guy that I think can take command of this offense and kind of be able to move it down the field. I think outside of Michael Penix Jr., who was really good at that and is really good for the newly crowned Big Ten West member Washington Huskies. I think you're going to see a lot of what Penix did in Taven Jackson. I think for Jackson, not being able to crack the starting lineup at Tennessee shouldn't alert or alarm people with Indiana. It's not that he wasn't good. It's just that you have Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton, and now you have – I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name yet. I'm going to wait till we get to the SEC show. But Nico.
Got to learn it. We all got to learn
Nico
it.
Malva.
Malva?
No.
Dolores.
Nico Volvo. Here we go.
Nico Volvo.
He should get an NIL deal with Volvo and just change his name. You know how like they did with Joe Thiesman?
Mm-hmm.
They changed it to Heisman.
Mm-hmm.
So his next NIL deal should be Volvo, and it should be Nico Volvo. Just change his last name. But anyway, like he wasn't going to beat any of those guys out. Like those guys are, when you talk about elite talents, like Joe Milton can literally throw the ball over the mountains. Hendon Hooker is a 3rd-round draft pick, and I think Nico will be.
Nico was a 5-star. Nico's a
5-star. So. Nico is legit.
Yeah.
So Taven Jackson transferred, and he should have.
Yeah.
And
in the homecoming, he's from Indiana.
Yeah, and he's from Indiana.
His brother played basketball.
Really good program in Indiana with Center Grove. So I'm excited to watch him. I think he's going to give this this Hoosier team a shot in the arm. The team that I'm very low on, Josh, that you're seemingly higher on than me is Michigan State. So I think Michigan State might finish DFL in the East.
Yeah, Michigan State's just such an oddball. In my blog, I called them kind of the X factor, where with so many transfers, we're not really sure what to expect.
They just, I mean, defensively, I don't know what they're doing. Usually, you can kind of tell what they want to try to do. There's just sometimes I just can't. I don't know. I think Rutgers is going to be pretty good. I think they're going to stabilize offensively, and that'll help a lot. Having a lot of returning starters is going to be big for them. I think Indiana, aside from their tough schedule, I do think that they can win. Like, I'm not overly scared of Louisville. Illinois is really good. Wisconsin will be really good, but I'm not overly scared of Louisville, and I think that they can, compete with Rutgers. They can beat Michigan State. I think they can beat Maryland. Like, I think they're going to be pretty good, and a lot of it's going to be their quarterback.
All right, well, let's head to, unless the league changes their mind with all the new teams, the last year of the beloved Wild Wild West.
Beloved is a bit of a stretch. Go on.
And, I'm wearing the old Hayden Fry hat for a reason. Because, gentlemen, I'm buying the Kool-Aid.
Josh, I'm worried about you, man. I'm really worried about you.
Josh, I got one question for you.
Yeah.
Did they fire Brian Ferentz?
No.
Did you watch the 2-hour clinic on the Outside Zone?
Yes, every second of it is fantastic.
That explains.
Okay, well,
that makes total sense.
I am taking Iowa, and here's my reason why. They almost won the division last year with Spencer Petras, who really struggled and then got hurt. They have a huge improvement at quarterback with Cade McNamara. They have bolstered their offensive line and wide receiver core with some key transfers. They have a really good running back in Caleb Johnson, and their defense will be outstanding yet again. The schedule does have a trip to Happy Valley, but their other crossover games are pretty advantageous, Michigan State and Rutgers. I've got Wisconsin right there with them at number 2. Matt, I know you have the Badgers.
I do.
So tell us all about that.
Before we dive into that, it doesn't matter if you have Brian Ferentz calling the plays. You could have Dan Marino, prime Dan Marino at quarterback. You're not like Brian Ferentz lacks the ability to keep a drive going.
They gave him incentives if we average 25 points, he gets a huge pay raise.
But does that also includes the 10 points a game the defense scores?
We're gonna kick 10 field goals a game.
You're a Division I Power 5 program that's allowed to recruit. I don't know if they know that they're allowed to recruit, but I just don't think Cade McNamara is going to add a whole lot. Their defense is going to have to average. They're going to have to be the 2021 Georgia Bulldog defense that allowed less than 10 points a game.
I mean, they're pretty good. I mean, the Iowa defense is pretty good.
They are good.
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
But can they be elite? Which is they're going to have to.
They already are elite.
Elite.
They were elite last year.
Elite.
They were elite last year.
Elite. You get what I'm saying, right? They're gonna have to carry a bad offense.
I mean, when you look at defensive stats for the most consistent performers of defense the last few years, it's Iowa and Alabama.
I know, I know, but they're gonna have to go beyond that to carry this bad offense. Is what I'm saying.
The offense is going to be way better than last year.
I mean, for your sake, Josh, you're the only reason I root for Iowa, but I hope you're right.
I guarantee you it's going to be a better offense than last year.
Well, it's because it can't be worse.
That is true.
And that is true.
I mean, they weren't even the worst offense of the Big Ten last year.
Scoring your yards wise.
Indiana was at the bottom of basically every
Indiana
was
pretty terrible at everything last year. Yeah. Well, you mentioned Wisconsin. I obviously think that Wisconsin's going to win because it is a new day under Coach Fickell in Madison. If Josh is drinking the Kool-Aid, I am I'm putting the Kool-Aid IV into my arms, probably because he buttered me up when I got to interview him and some of the rest of the guys up there in Madison. But I know that Josh, you amongst other people are hesitant about the new system coming into Wisconsin. Phil Longo, coming over from UNC, is bringing his air raid philosophies to Madison, which is definitely something new. My favorite quote of his from the camp press conference before camp kicked off was, the three things I love most in the world are my wife, my children, and slot receivers. Did not think I'd be hearing that out of a Wisconsin coach ever in my life, but uh, they're going to be spreading it out and running the ball, and they have two healthy running backs in Braylon Allen and Ches Malusi coming in healthy for the first time in his career. They'll be facing a lot more 5 and 6
That'll
man
last about
boxes,
5 minutes.
and instead of the 9 man boxes they were facing, because let's face it, no one was afraid of Graham Mertz throwing at all. Now they have a quarterback who's actually can throw, who scored 10 touchdowns in a single game in Tanner Mordecai before. The switch to the 3-3-5 defense is not going to be the easiest thing, but also not going to be the hardest thing, because they were running a varied 3-4 front under Jim Leonard, and it's going to be a lot of rotation of guys, especially along the front seven, who are going to be rotating in. Obviously, I'm very bullish on the Badgers this year. My biggest concerns are getting everyone on the same page on the offense. Obviously, all they've had is a spring and a fall training camp to get an entirely new system in place with a lot of transfer guys. 3 of their top 6 receivers are going to be transfers. Potentially 2 of their starting offensive linemen are going to be transfers. They lost their top 2 tight ends to medical retirements literally the week before camp started. So going to be a lot of new faces, especially on the offense. But at the end of the day, I think that they still have the single best offensive player in the West in Braylon Allen, and I'm going to choose to believe that Braylon Allen against light boxes is going to be enough of an offense for Wisconsin to win the West.
So my hesitation, you hit on the big one. All the new faces, Phil Longo's offense at North Carolina was incredible. It's just a lot to implement without a lot of time. My other hesitation was when you compare the Iowa schedule versus Wisconsin schedule. Wisconsin's is harder.
Yes.
Wisconsin has Ohio State. They have road trips to an Illinois team that we like. They have a road trip to Minneapolis. Minnesota's lost some players, but still, that's a massive rivalry game for Minnesota. They're going to be hungry, as they always are for that one. So, for me, it's 1A Iowa, 1B Wisconsin. It's going to be one of the two teams.
I think Illinois could be 3. I think it's 1A, 1B, 1C. I really like Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I'm a big fan of Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, Bielema scares me a little bit.
All right, well, let's go to Illinois because I got them third.
Whoa! Can I tell you why I like Wisconsin?
Sure,
of course.
I think I've studied Phil Longo a little bit because I'm an air raid guy. I like air raid stuff, and so I think the system just in general is very digestible. But I think Phil Longo's spin on it, I think really in his love for slot receivers, that doesn't go unnoticed. He makes things, he puts guys in matchups, advantageous matchups. He makes things real simple, like relatively simple, like not too simple, but he makes things like relatively simple. It's things that you can pick up on. It's creating matchups. It's all concept based. It's like, okay, we're gonna have a few concepts. We're going to get to it a lot of different ways, right? And I think a lot of times he goes about that, just creates different looks to where it looks like it's 60 different plays, but it's really just like 10 or 12. He and just by formation adjustments and things like that, I think putting guys in conflict and making guys defend the entire width of the field puts them in positions to get easy completions. Easy completions gets you down the road. And then when you have Braylon Allen, you get lighter boxes. Teams have to make decisions, right? Like, do we stop Braylon Allen or do we stop these slot receivers? And when those edge guys have to make that decision, that's where Phil Longo's at his best. He was at his best at North Carolina with Sam Howell. He was at his best at that with Matt Corral at Ole Miss. And then when he was at Sam Houston State, that dude broke some scoreboards. So that's why I like Wisconsin. I like the new energy. I think Fickle is great, wins wherever he goes. The only thing I worry about with the defense, Matt, is I'm not a big fan of the 3-3-5. I think up front in this league, I think you need to have more
beef
up front. I think you need more beef. I think this is an even front type of league to where you need four down guys, and then you can play with athletes in space on the perimeter. But you need guys like you need those 4 down guys.
I even think like your old school Gary Patterson 4-2-5 it would be a better choice than the 3-3-5 if
I
you
agree.
have to play with a nickel. If you're saying yes, I'm going to start with a nickel, I think and I think one of the ways that Wisconsin's countering that is that one of their starting outside linebackers looks like it's going to be TJ Bowlers, who's 270 pounds and is effectively going to play as an end for the most part, but still, I do completely agree with that, and that is.
There's ways to manipulate it, but then you're kind of getting away from base 3-3-5. And like what I really liked about Jim Leonhard was that he would move guys around, and he would manipulate his fronts to get what he needed out of those fronts on the perimeter and up front. And I just don't know if this version of Wisconsin. I mean, I'm pretty sure they are. He wouldn't be at Wisconsin if he wasn't, but. I don't know. I don't know if he's as savvy at that as Jim Leonhard was.
I mean, few people are. I mean, that's an extraordinarily high bar to clear.
Now Illinois is going to get to
get
full benefit
of that.
You
mentioned the beef up front. That's Illinois' strength. They probably have the best defensive line in the league, or at least one of the best. I know they lost their defensive coordinator, but Brett Bielema is a defensive coach. Got to trust him. I know they lost quarterback Tommy DeVito and running back Chase Brown, but
they got Jimmy Leonhard as a
exactly.
So
but
be an upgrade. Actually, go ahead.
Well, I mean, their defensive coordinator's coaching Purdue now, so he got promoted. But
he did get promoted. You're right.
Yeah, but I mean, even without DeVito and Brown, Bielema's got his system. Running through their schedule, I see 7 great chances at wins with a few other toss-ups in there. So safe to say a bowl team. I am curious, though, Coach. Recently, Brett Bielema, I think it was at Big Ten Media Days, said that this is his last job and he will retire at Illinois. So if you have that outlook, does it let you coach stress-free, play with house money, maybe take some chances you might not have, be a little bit more aggressive? Or does that outlook make you really complacent and you become Jimbo Fisher and it actually hurts your drive as a coach?
Jimbo Fisher, that guy is as complicated as it gets. Wait till we get to the SEC. That the storyline of the SEC is going to be the Jimbo Fisher, Bobby Petrino dynamic, because that ain't gonna work. That's beside the point. I mean, with Coach Bielema's personality, I think it's the former. I think it's going to allow him to be more stress-free, not completely stress-free, because let's be honest, Big Ten football is stressful, no matter how you slice it and dice it. But I do think he is a little bit more relaxed in what he does. Maybe that makes it, and again, I think that makes him more aggressive in how he goes about doing things. Like, he's going to take some chances because he knows that he's playing with house money right now. They love him in Illinois. Why? Because he almost got him into the Big Ten title game in year 1. Like, Illinois is not one of those programs. I mean, they play in the Big Ten, so yeah, obviously they want to win, but they don't have such unrealistic expectations that if they don't, they're going to run him out of town. So he knows that because of how he did in year 1, he can take some chances, because as an Illinois team, or as a Nebraska or Purdue or somebody like that, in order to get to the top, you have to take big risk, because you're never going to be talented enough to compete toe-to-toe with Wisconsin traditionally, or Iowa traditionally. So you have to take some chances. And I think Bielema understands that. I think he did not understand that at Arkansas. He understands that now. I think he's coaching a lot more free. So yes, other people, I would maybe go with the latter, but not Brett Bielema.
All righty. Well, let's head up to the Twin Cities. One of the best trips to make in our league.
Row your
The
boat.
Gophers.
Row your boat.
Row the boat. Yeah, got Minnesota fourth. I picked them to win the division last year thanks to being the most experienced team in the division last year. They obviously don't have that strength this year, but they do have a really talented quarterback they are excited in. I am not in midseason form yet, so let's make sure I get this.
Ethan Kaliak-Manis.
Yeah, Ethan Kaliak-Manis.
Yeah, better you than me. I would have said Kalakaminus.
Well, let's just say he's the Greek sensation.
I'm just glad he's not on my roster.
Sweeping the Minneapolis nation. He also has a really nice receiving core to throw to. One of the Gophers' strengths last year was an outstanding defense, but they have just 5 starters back on that side of the ball. We could wax poetically about Minnesota, but it's kind of our annual tradition when we do these preview shows. Matt, tell us why you hate BJ Fleck.
Wait, hold on, Josh. I'm gonna need you to ask that question again. I did not get the proper ovation that I needed to answer the question. Hold on,
Matt.
Yes.
Tell us why you hate BJ Fleck.
Okay, that's much better now. That's much
Preach
better.
it, brother.
Now, hold on. How many Fleck bucks do you have in your account right now, Burton?
I have 37 Fleck bucks, so
Yeah.
I can fail 4 drug tests.
There you go.
Well, to quote The Office, what's the exchange rate of Fleck bucks to Ferentz nickels?
Well, I mean, there's 20 nickels in $1, and the exchange rate of Big Ten championships to Big Ten championships is +2 for Ferentz. So I'm going to carry the 9, and that's going to be infinity because all that Fleck is a con man. He is the definition of a con man. He is, I mean, in a sport filled with egotistical coaches, Fleck's ego is on a different plane than even that of the greats, of Nick Saban, of Kirby Smart, of guys who've actually won something worth touting.
So in a world of egomaniacs, he stands out.
Yes, he is one to himself. The fact that he is somehow suckered in this entire athletic department to have his whole row the boat shtick all over the stadium and campus. Like, it's baffling to me that they are willing to bend some really nice traditions. I actually have some nice things to say about the University of Minnesota, but that they are willing to bastardize that for this man's gimmicks is laughable. Laughable.
Because he won 11 games at Western Michigan.
I will say,
then got his ass beat in the Cotton Bowl by Wisconsin.
Let me just preface this.
Also, I've got Minnesota finishing 6th this year in the West.
Fair enough. Let me just preface this by saying I genuinely love the Twin Cities, love their stadium.
Mm-hmm.
I normally don't even concern myself with Minnesota. I know they're a rival, but I don't lose sleep over them or find anything about them. They win or lose, exciting or disappointing. But I will say, I find it absolutely hilarious to hear them chanting, "Who hates Iowa? We hate Iowa," against every opponent. That is little brother syndrome.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Good job. You guys you can spell your school name. I'm really proud of you for going Minnesota. Wow. No wonder you're a safety school.
Man. All right. If we're doing rants on stuff, let's head over to Nebraska.
I love this.
I have a little bit of a rant.
I can't follow up on that one. All right, go for it.
Okay. So Matt Rule, he's obviously entering his first year at Nebraska. There's a lot of like hype and people are excited, but I just want to remind everyone that his debut seasons at Temple and Baylor went a combined 3-21. So I'm not expecting too much.
Well, he comes into these piss poor programs, so
one of their better defensive players just left the program after Rule like suspended him for something. I haven't even followed all of that.
Violation of team rules.
Yeah, which
it's very vague.
I have documented this often, but Nebraska, when you do the math on stuff, is just in a horrible position for recruiting. It produces very little in-state talent. And a lot of this is a numbers game. And I think when people think Nebraska, they're like, oh, Omaha's a big city. The state population for Nebraska is under 2 million people. That's over 1 million people less than Iowa. So, like, Iowa has a whole extra 1 million people. Like, that is a huge numbers game. And, like, Iowa faces some of these issues in recruiting as well. Mm-hmm. Its recruiting golden age, when they were amazing, came with Tom Osborne, who oversigned everybody. There weren't issues with oversight. So he'd signed 400 players and then cut them. And then when they beat the living snot out of women on campus, he would just keep them around. They don't have that anymore. The other thing is when they got to have their recruiting golden age, they had these lifelong rivals, chiefly Oklahoma and then later Texas, to play off against.
And even Colorado, when Colorado was at its best, too.
Yeah. So I'm going to be honest. I don't ever expect Nebraska to ever really be good again. Like, Rule will do better than Frost. But to me, this program has a ceiling of like 8-9 wins, and then maybe a magical season where it all clicks and they win.
Hey,
like
I know
10.
somebody that was averaging 9-10 wins a year.
And in fact, I'm going to go a step further. So when all these huge conferences get created, we're having 20-team conferences, we all know the next phase of realignment is ESPN and Fox saying, well, we can't give you the same amount of money. So the schools are going to have a less of a pie piece. And when that happens, massive brands like Ohio State or Alabama or USC, they're going to be leaving the Big Ten and the SEC. They're going to create their own super leagues. And I'm sorry, Nebraska fans, you ain't getting invited to those because you don't have any eyeballs in your state. You have all these population limits on ever being good again. You're going to be pretty down. And I'm telling Nebraska fans right now, when we're doing this show in about 2050, Nebraska is going to be in that equivalent of like the MAC. It just is. So, gentlemen, am I being too much of a Debbie Downer with all this realignment stuff? Is my tinfoil hat on too tight today? Tell me.
Yes. I think when you talk super leagues, they tried this in Europe. It didn't work. Nobody. I don't think the Super League thing's going to happen. First of all, it just won't. It just won't.
I think it will.
They tried to make it happen with the top 32 clubs in Europe, and it didn't go. But I think when you look at Nebraska, the equivalent program in this day and age that I look at that can be their ceiling is Iowa State. Very similar, but Iowa State was never a power prior to that. Nebraska was. However, there ain't nobody in high school right now that knows jack diddly do about Nebraska. So I think what Matt Rule needs to do is just get them to where they're averaging 8 or 9 wins a year, get them to their ceiling, win 11 games once or twice, and then he can be Nebraska's version of Matt Campbell.
But the last guy to do that got fired. Look what they did to Bo Pelini.
Well, Bo Pelini got fired not because of his on-the-field stuff. Bo Pelini got fired for being Bo Pelini. Bo Pelini is, there's some words to describe him. I don't know if you guys want me to say those things, but Bo Pelini got fired not because he was a bad football coach. He got fired because he's very bombastic and probably set figurative fire to the entire athletic department. That's probably why he got fired. He cussed one too many people out. He's toxic. Matt Rule,
what do you think about conspiracy?
I mean, I think Nebraska's inconsequential. And Matt Rule, Sis Boomba, Matt Rule, good coach. Yeah. Jeff Sims, Georgia Tech transfer quarterback. Who knows? But, they've gotten some interesting recruits, but it's hard to recruit to Nebraska, man. Like, have y'all been to Lincoln?
No.
I mean, I know Josh has.
It's trash.
Ain't a whole lot there. Really just ain't a whole lot there. And I'm sorry, but
gotta get a runza when you go there.
It's not. I mean,
Matt Rule got some people.
It competes
got enough people to Waco.
Waco at least is in Texas and is a large population center. Like I think there's probably more people in the metro Waco area than there are in the entire state of Nebraska.
Well, plus, he recruited the Branch Davidians well.
Yeah, and we saw how that turned out for everyone.
They were an integral part of. They're the reason why Liberty has a football program.
All right, let's wrap up the Big Ten. Northwestern, I got, believe it or not, 6.
How?
I'll tell you how.
God,
they've had a bit of an off season, to say the least.
Yeah. Northwestern's going to finish 9th
in a 7-team West.
I mean,
they're going to put Innsworth in the standings in the Big Ten West before they put Northwestern.
They haven't had that many people transfer out, and they actually have some decent talent on their roster.
Okay,
Porter's
read your first sentence. Talent don't matter in that scenario.
He's pretty good.
Read your first sentence. Read your first sentence. Read your first sentence. Go ahead. Read it. Read it again.
They've had a bit of an off season.
They've had a bit of an off season.
Okay, what does that mean?
What does that?
Purdue's had as much of an off season, but in a different way.
Purdue has I would take Hudson Card over Ben Bryant any day. I would trust Ryan Walters more than any coach on the Northwestern staff. Frankly, over on MikeFarrellSports.com did my Big Ten predictions, and I have Purdue. Josh, you're gonna hate this. I have Purdue 4th in the West.
Purdue's defense last year was god awful. Yeah,
because they had Ron English and
they have 4 starters back.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. They're no. I'm going to vehemently disagree with you. I do not think Purdue is going to be. I think Purdue,
they're certainly not going to be worse than Northwestern at worst case scenario. Northwestern, dealing with the magnitude of stuff that they've dealt with this offseason, it ain't going to be pretty for them. Like you don't really recover from that.
I don't know.
I mean, they could surprise me, but I just don't think they will.
We're going to have to agree to disagree.
I mean, Josh. Hudson Card does really nothing for me. They've got Mockerby at running back, who's a nice player, but I'm telling you, this defense is going to be something god awful, even with the defensive-minded coaching staff that they got now.
And they still finish above Northwestern.
I have them losing to Northwestern.
That ain't gonna happen. Northwestern going over this year. It's gonna be brutal, unless they have some FCS teams in there.
They got Howard. They'll beat.
Okay, so they'll win at least one. Yeah, that's not good. Not good for them. Purdue's gonna finish at least 6th. Worst case scenario.
Ryan Walters.
Same with the guy who's the head coach at Northwestern now.
Yeah, but they have Skip Holtz on staff. Baby.
Oh yeah, because I mean, okay, that's nice.
XFL baby.
Okay, well, just running through Purdue's schedule. I got them losing to Fresno.
Purdue
Virginia
could very
Tech-
easily go 3 and whatever, but they're still not going
Virginia
to
Tech's,
yeah.
Virginia Tech's a toss-up. Syracuse is a toss-up. They're losing to Wisconsin. They're losing to Illinois. They're losing at Iowa. They're going to get blown out by Ohio State. They might be able to win at Nebraska. They're going to get blown out by Michigan.
and still finish 6th.
I don't think they'll beat Minnesota.
Still finish
Their
6th.
most winnable game in league is a road game. It's at Northwestern, and then they end with Indiana.
I still like that a lot more than anything Northwestern has. I don't want to get caught up on this though.
Yeah, man. Okay.
We have to agree to
Keep
disagree.
an eye on it. Keep an eye on it over the course of the season. All right,
we can agree to disagree.
Yeah, I know. My champion, I got Michigan over Iowa. Sounds like we all have Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
My offensive MVP, Blake Corum, there at Michigan, running back. My defensive MVP, homer pick, Cooper DeJean at Iowa. Coach of the year, because I have them making the title game, Kirk Ferentz.
That's worst case scenario for you.
My newcomer is Tanner Mordecai there at Wisconsin. And my first fired is all of Northwestern staff the second the season end.
I think your coach of the year is going to be James Franklin when he finishes second in the.
Oh, that's a good one.
I'm with Coach 100%.
That's a good one.
James Franklin. My newcomer of the year is Dante Cephas, the wide receiver at Penn State as well. My defensive MVP is also a Nittany Lion. It's aforementioned Chop Robinson.
Chop. Here we go.
Hey, first fired. It's kind of a given that Northwestern staff is going to be fired. So, like, what's our real first fired?
Mel Tucker.
I mean, with the payout money, yeah. I actually really like his last few years haven't been good, but as I mentioned in the blog, I am still a believer in Tom Allen. When you look at the recruiting classes getting better and the fact that the team is like competent, it's not like Chris Ash where they're just like awful. Like that's a well-run football team that just has an awful schedule this year. So I would be disappointed in Indiana if they fired Tom Allen.
They shouldn't. If they haven't fired him by now, I think he would have to go over for them.
I don't think he's being fired either.
Like this year would have to be an utter disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to fly through the MAC. We're already
we pause for this quick ad read. If you want to buy some AvidCare, let me know. Okay.
There we go. All right, so the MAC. Let's recap the MAC last year. It was all about the state of Ohio. Toledo won the league. Ohio won their division. Bowling Green and Miami both went bowling, and the worst team in the league was Akron. The best story though was Eastern Michigan. They won 9 games, including their bowl game. Just their second bowl win in program history and their first since 1987. My 5 questions are: can Ohio get back to the title game, which would be their 6th appearance since the MAC has had a title game, and then freaking win the thing so they can get their first league title since way back in 1968?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
All right, my second question: can Chris Crichton there at Eastern Michigan, can he add to that success last year and maybe contend for that title, put some pressure on Toledo?
As long as Samson Evers is there, I think he's got a chance.
Yeah. Speaking about Toledo, we'll get to them in a little bit, but they have a ton of talent back. Do they roll it back with another title, or do they even go up a level and get into the national poll by the end of this year?
Yes and no.
All right. 4, Miami. They have very quietly gone bowling 2 straight years and 3 out of the last 4.
I think Mario Cristobal is doing a great. Oh wait.
They did not go bowling last year.
I almost said that with a straight face. They got blue rated.
Will Miami be more of a factor this year as the East is a little bit more open than the West? And then finally, Bowling Green got about a weird season. They lost their bowl game. He got blown out by Ohio in their season finale, but they did upset Toledo during the year. Are they one of those teams that's going to take a step forward? All right, so let's run through it for the East. I got Ohio repeating as division champs. I'm gambling that quarterback Curtis Rourke, who tore his ACL late in the season last year, is good to go. They return a 1,000-yard back in Shi Bangura. They have a really talented wideout in Sam Wiglusz. The D was hilariously awful last year, but they still went 7-1 in league. So they have, if they grow on that, if they have any growth on that side of the ball, they should be good to go in this division. They get Miami at home and avoid Toledo. Gents, 1968 is a very long time ago. Is this finally the Bobcats' year?
It's got to be, right? They're due.
I still think Toledo's too good.
All right. Over to Miami.
Welcome to Miami.
Unfortunately, one of the all-time great names. He's done. He's gone. Mac Heppenhammer. One hell of a wide receiver. He's gone. He's moved on. But quarterback Brett Gabbert. Gabbert missed basically all of last year. He is back and healthy. Coach, do you agree with my tiebreaker that the Red Hawks' harder schedule will be that deciding factor against Ohio?
Yeah, anytime you have a new quarterback or anytime there's some shakeup, yes, I think so. I mean, you look at it there. Miami is at Miami. Go figure.
What?
They're at Cincinnati.
Miami,
September
Ohio
1st.
playing
I
at
know,
Miami, Florida.
It's just funny how you said that.
I know.
Miami's at Miami.
That's what I was going for.
I was laughing at the delivery, the deadpan.
Miami is at Miami.
It's like, yes. And
Miami is at Miami.
I thought there'd be more of a sentence there.
No, I just wanted to reiterate the fact that this is the greatest irony of all time. Miami is playing in Miami. I had to double make sure it wasn't like the scrimmage game or something like that. They're at they got a road game at Cincinnati. They luckily for them though, they host Toledo. They're at Ohio. Not easy there. Bowling Green's never easy. They're at Western Michigan. I mean their schedule's pretty hard. Not gonna lie, but they're tough. One of their toughest games is at home against Toledo, so that goes in their favor. So I don't know. It's honestly gonna come down October 20th. It's gonna be a pivotal moment in the MAC East division.
All right, number 3. I'm heading to Bowling Green. They've got Connor Basilek, the former Indiana and before that Missouri quarterback. He wasn't very flashy, admittedly, last year at Indiana, but by MAC standards, he's a pretty good quarterback to have. They have tons of nice pieces around him.
It's not a talent thing. It's a terrible fit.
Yeah, they have a ton of nice pieces around him, including 4 offensive line starters back. Plenty of skill position players returning as well. Matt, though, there's only 6 starters back on defense. But there's a lot to like there. Do you have them as a dark horse?
Yeah, I mean, Basilek's definitely taken the JT Daniels journey, going from Missouri to Indiana to Bowling Green. Who knows where he'll be next year? But
Incarnate Word.
Who knows? I mean, Jacksonville State.
He'll be in the Fun Belt somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. Dark horse, yes. But
brown horse, maybe. Brown and orange horse.
Brown and orange horse, maybe. Yeah, I mean, you know what? They're not. I think that I think there's a pretty solid dichotomy between the top 3 and the bottom 3 in this division. So, I mean, in as much as that, yes, they can be a dark horse for the league title because any of those top 3 teams in the East could win, as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
I think the fact that they have things around Connor Basilek is good. Like he was on a pitiful Indiana team where they just couldn't.
Well, they had no offensive
going.
line. They had no offensive line. He's got the opposite of that. He's actually got a pretty good by Max Sanders offensive line. So.
Exactly. This might be the best offensive line he's played behind,
and that includes Missouri and Indiana.
Yep.
All right, heading over to upstate / Western, both up and west. Western New York, Buffalo. 21. They showed some great strides last year. They won 7 games. They also took down Toledo, but they lost a ton, especially on defense. They have just 5 starters back, and their defense was takeover happy last year. Coach, that defense forced 26 turnovers last year.
Pretty impressive.
Is it true as a coach that turnovers regress to the mean each year? Like, are we?
It does.
Okay.
I think it's gonna regress back to the mean a little bit. I mean, that's just natural, but hopefully it doesn't go. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully the pendulum doesn't swing the other way and they go minus 26.
26 giveaways.
That would be bad.
That'd be a little disastrous, but yeah, I think they're going to get a little bit closer to the mean at least. I don't think they're going to be plus 26. I don't know what their giveaway rate was last year, but I don't think they're best case scenario. I think they're probably +2, +3 turnover. I think they're still going to. I still think they're going to cause a lot of turnovers, but not as many as they did.
All right. In the 5 hole, I got Akron. We all like their coach, Joe Moorhead, and he has a pretty good quarterback there with DJ Irons. Just not really a complete team around them yet as they continue to rebuild to compete with the upper half of this division. And then rounding things out, we got Kent State at 6. They have a brand new coach and basically a brand new team as they have 0 starters back on offense. Perko, they have a UCLA transfer though.
No, they don't.
Colin.
No, they don't.
What?
Nope. Their old quarterback transferred out to go to UCLA.
Oh, I had my notes flipped there.
Yep. So yeah,
Well
they
then,
literally have
there's
nothing.
even less-
This
There's even less to
team
talk about.
is going to
Penn State.
be
All right.
awful. I am
Oh, boy.
probably not going to watch a second of them this
All
year.
right, time to double check those notes.
I mean,
had them flipped.
I haven't logged much time watching Kent State. I think watching Kent State versus Georgia was the most Kent State football I've ever watched.
And they were actually not bad in that game against Georgia.
They were pretty sporty.
They went like 4-8 though last
They were
year.
pretty sporty, but yeah, the whole
Saban
0
ain't walking
starters
through that door.
the whole 0 starters back on offense thing. That might
Heck,
be a
Sean
little
Lewis
bit of a
didn't
red
walk through
flag.
that door.
All right, well let's jump over to the West then. Got number 1 Toledo. They are the defending champions, obviously, and they have 16.
Speaking of Nick Saban not walking through that door,
they have 16 starters back. They start at Illinois, and they also have San Jose State in the non-conference. But past that, very likely they're going to be favored in every game. So going back to one of my key questions, gentlemen, can this team be ranked at some point in the year?
like in the 20s, or like are you talking like ranked?
Just
As
anywhere in the pool.
they are looking.
They're
at
in the
an
top.
automatic
They're,
bid.
no. They're in the top 25
Oh,
at any
yeah.
point in the year, even in the final poll after the bowl.
Yeah, I think they can. I think they can sneak in.
Yeah, you talk, but
21 to 25.
they've got that tough non-con though with Illinois and San Jose State. Those are 2 tough games. And I'm really high on San Jose State this year. I like Illinois a lot. So they might lose those 2 and win the rest of their games, win the conference title game. They're 11-2 at the end of, then you might see them in the 20s, but I think it's going to take a little while because I don't see them beating Illinois, and it's a coin flip with San Jose State at best.
All right. Heading over to Ypsilanti for second place. I got Eastern Michigan. Starting with the positives, Matt mentioned him earlier. They got 1,000-yard back Samson Evans back. They also have 8 starters returning on that defense. They do have a new-look offensive line. A few other items to kind of patch together on offense. Matt, they travel to Toledo, but overall have a slightly easier schedule than the Rockets. Do they shock the MAC world? Toledo's the consensus winner of this, but do you see a path for Eastern?
Yes.
It is that puncher's chance,
Tough
5%. But
it's not a great chance.
I mean, so you're saying there's a chance, but I am not.
It's all this 1 in a million talk.
Yeah, it's
all right.
They have a chance.
I'm grouping Northern Illinois and Central Michigan. I have Northern 3rd, Central 4th. The reason I'm grouping them is they have the exact same story. Last year, disappointing seasons for both due to horrible injury luck. Central Michigan has 9 starters back on defense, which is pretty nice. But Northern Illinois gets their quarterback, Rocky Lombardi, back. He was great 2 years ago for the Huskies, but then missed last year. Coach, I have NIU just nosing out Central. Is that the correct order, or do you have them flipped?
No, that I like that order because I'm a big fan of Rocky Lombardi.
Rocky Lombardi's been around since the Clinton administration. Like,
yeah,
he's
that dude is you talk about a veteran, man. That dude can sling it, man.
I mean, he's a veteran. He served in freaking Vietnam. Like, come on.
He was a tunnel rat. That's why he's so tough.
All righty. Number 5, I'm going to continue to show that I know these towns. We're going to go to Muncie, Indiana for Ball State. They lost 4 league games last year by a single
David
score.
Letterman ain't walking through that door. Oh.
They return a ton of talent, including something rather rare, a tight end duo where both players are like awesome. And that is Brady Hunt
I know this problem.
and Tanner Kozowell. Matt, do you see this team flipping their terrible luck last year and being a little bit of a factor and getting back to a bowl game?
It's gonna be tough, but frankly, like after Toledo, you can make a case for a lot of these teams in the West with injury luck. Besides, it's sort of like 2 through 5 in a lot of ways could be a crapshoot. So yeah, they can definitely make it back to a bowl. It's not what I would necessarily bet on because I like some of the pieces on those other teams, like you mentioned, Eastern Michigan and Northern Illinois more. But there's definitely a world that Ball State makes it to a bowl. I'm with you. I would have them 5 preseason here.
All right, and rounding things out over in Kalamazoo, Western Michigan, brand new coach as well, just like Kent State. They have just 2 starters back on their team, so brand new team as well there. My champion, unfortunately, Ohio bridesmaid yet again. I've got Toledo over Ohio.
Ohio's due. I'm going Ohio. They're due.
I'm going to take the chalk and go with Toledo because that team has too many guys back and
This is Maction, guys.
It is Maction. My offensive MVP, one of those numerous Toledo players back. They're electric quarterback. This dude is awesome, DeQuan Finn.
I'm going to say Rocky. No, I like your pick. Never mind. Just kidding.
I'm going to go with Brett Gabbert, actually, at Miami.
Ooh, I like that. My defensive MVP, I've done this for a few other teams where it's kind of a cop-out, but I think Eastern Michigan with those 8 starters back is going to have an incredible defense. I think one of the reasons they're going to contend and finish second in the division is that defense. And frankly, I think somebody from that Eastern Michigan defense is going to win defensive MVP. I just don't know who yet.
Your guess is as good as mine here. I got nothing on this one. I'm not going to lie. I got absolutely nothing on this one, Coach.
Shoot. so someone.
I mean, is Khalil Mack still eligible for Buffalo? Like,
I can tell you, it's not going to be somebody from Kent State or Western Michigan.
That's true.
My coach of the year, Jason Candle, over there at Toledo.
Yeah, if chalk happens, it's definitely Jason Candle.
Yeah, that feels about right.
Newcomer, he's got a lot of.
My coach of the year is Sean Lewis for leaving Kent State with no starters on offense. Jesus.
My newcomer of the year, we've talked a fair amount about him now, but Connor Bazelak there at Bowling Green.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy. That's a pretty solid choice.
Yeah. All right, and my first fired. Honestly, all the bad teams have new coaches, so I think the MAC is going to avoid any coaching changes due to firing.
Yeah, I it's hard to find somebody who's going to get fired here because
Mike New maybe at Ball State if they fall apart.
Maybe, but again,
I mean, he's won a title with them.
If Buffalo regresses to the mean and that means more losses, is there a chance there? I don't see Moorhead
last year.
I don't see Akron firing Moorhead because they had such a hard time hiring somebody.
No. This is only a second year.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not. I don't know. Like Ball State.
Yeah, so I think that's really.
Is he? I mean, how new is he?
Mike New.
He's
been there.
He's always new.
He's always
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah,
so like it's more than enough time. So if it's
they won the MAC though.
If it's a disaster, maybe I don't know. That's a tough one.
Did they win the COVID year, or was it the year after COVID?
It's a tough one.
Yeah,
maybe Shark Humper.
I
I don't know. Just to guess.
All right.
Let's say shark humper.
It was 2020. It was the COVID season that they were MAC champs.
Nice.
And they beat Buffalo in the conference title game.
There we go. That'll do it. That's all I got for you guys.
All right. Well, that was
another stunning success.
That was a good one. I think
Corey, did you listen to the last few seconds of last week's episode yet?
No.
Oh, well, I mean, I hate to repeat the joke, but it's so good. I joked that you sent me and Matt a text while we were recording, and the text said that you bought a jersey.
Oh,
and the jersey is a house divided jersey where it's half Texas burnt orange, half Oklahoma maroon, and the name on the back says SEC.
It's in the mail.
It's in the mail, Coach.
It's in the mail.
It's in the mail. It's
in the mail.
It's wearing number 69, and that is Corey's gonna be wearing that at SEC Media Days next year. If you're at Media Days or anywhere else and happen to run into any of us, say what's up. And on that note, I think that's going to do it for us here today on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. So, on behalf of our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton, here in Nashville, Tennessee, and our intrepid blogger from Big Ten Accounting, Josh Cook, up there in the Windy City, this is Matt Perkins in Nashville saying so long, and see you next time on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast.
Peace out.